President Trump told Fox News this morning that the midterms have, quote, nothing to do with his thinking on the war. Trump said he has no time schedule and is not in a hurry. Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins me now. General, we don't seem to be getting any closer to a deal, and the Iranians are clearly successfully playing for time. What should be our next move?
Well, I think where we truly are is the diplomatic phase of this it just really hasn't met our objectives. And we went to the ceasefire, if you recall, on April the 7th, and that really began negotiations, and it started over the Straits of Hormuz because the Iranians indicated to us that they were willing to make a deal over the Straits, and we actually signed one, as you know, a couple of months later on June the 17th. And several days after that, the Iranians blew that deal up, literally, by attacking. So where we find ourselves is we're no closer to a deal than we were at the very beginning, back in the first week in April. And what the president and his team has decided to do is to put as much economic pressure on the Iranians as possible. On April, on April the 17th, literally a week after the ceasefire, we established a naval blockade. And by anybody looking at it, it's not disputable. It's been very successful. And it's shut down everything going in and out of Iranian ports, where it takes away a significant part of their revenue. And obviously that's having an adverse impact. And Secretary Bessent is going full throttle here to put as much economic challenge on the Iranians as possible, going way beyond the sanctions that we've done in the past. So I think where the president is that they're going to see how this economic pressure does work out, and will that motivate the Iranians to make the kind of deal the president and his team want. My own view, I'm not going to dodge the reality of it, I don't think that's going to work by itself. I mean, here's what I think the Iranians really are, Stuart. They're going to try to ride this out as best they possibly can. They don't know the answer themselves if they can. But they certainly, after 4 months, I think they believe they can. And they're going to keep riding it out because they believe the pressure on the president in terms of midterms, and also the oil and gas prices spiking, will keep him from conducting military operations. And I think what they'll probably do is get more aggressive to try to indicate to the American people that the management of the war is not going well. I think that's their strategy. Don't know for a fact, but watching the pattern of behavior, in my view, it's going to take to compel the Iranians to fundamentally change what's happening here. It's going to take economic pressure, everything we're doing now, and also military pressure. The combination of the both of them, I think, will put us in a place where we need to be.
You're a hawk, I can tell. One more, General. President Trump says he wants to make the Strait of Hormuz a U.S. territory. Is that a throwaway line, or is it a serious strategy?
No, I don't think it's a strategy. I think it's an aspiration of his. Certainly he would like to own it, and therefore we wouldn't have all these problems associated with it, much as he said once before about the Panama Canal. And we've overcome the challenges there as well. You know, I think the Strait of Hormuz is certainly an issue, Stuart, as you can well tell. I mean, this weekend, single digits got through. Last weekend, about 30-plus ships got through, but that's nothing in comparison, you know, to the 130 that used to be on a daily basis. So the Iranians still, they don't have control of it, but they're influencing it by threatening disruption of it. We're controlling what's going in and out of Iran, and we're attempting to control the ships that move in the southern part of the Straits near Oman, but they voluntarily move there if they believe there's not going to be any problems. And they're disincentivized because the Iranians are threatening and intimidating them, and they just fired recently on 3 UAE tankers. So the challenge here is taking control of the Straits, where Iran is no longer has the influence that they're insinuating through intimidation and coercion to disrupt it. And so the people who are making the decisions to go through the Straits really are the ship owners.
Yeah. Right.
And obviously driven also by insurance companies and the like. They're the decision makers here, and right now they don't have the confidence to do that to the degree that we think we can get them through there. And that's a fact. So that's the path we're on. There's pressure as a result of that, to be sure.
Okay. And the Iranians don't seem to be close to surrender. General, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great talking to you, Stuart. Thank you.
You too.